Q&A Review, print speaking to the blind, celebrating 40 years of audio newspaper production. Welcome to this week's edition of the Herald Scotland Podcast, recorded at the Bishop Briggs Media Centre by our amazing volunteers. You can get in touch with us via Facebook, Twitter or Instagram using @Q&A Review, that is @ CUEANDREVIEW. You can also contact us directly by emailing information@queanreview.com. That is INFORMATION @CUEANDREVIEW.com, or by calling 0141 772 3976. That's 0141 772 3976.
This is from the Herald Scotland of Wednesday the 30th of October 2024 from the business section. Scottish firm says project will take 1 million engineering hours. This article is by Ian McConnell. Aberdeen-based oil services company Wood has won a significant engineering services contract for a project it says will take 1 million engineering hours to execute and engage hundreds of its staff. The contract is for Aramco's southern and northern areas gas increments project in Saudi Arabia. Wood said the project, which is planned to take 1 million engineering hours to execute, will support the country's goal of increasing natural gas production. It added that the 7-year project will peak at over 400 Wood employees, primarily in Al Khobar, KSA, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Reading, UK, and Chennai, India. Wood will deliver project management consultancy services, including engineering, for gas facilities in eastern Saudi Arabia, including large-scale onshore gas production and processing facilities. Craig Shanachie, Wood's executive president of project, said, "Natural gas is a key transition fuel that can have an immediate positive impact on the carbon emissions associated with energy production. Building on our 30-year relationship with Aramco, we are delighted to support this significant expansion project. The southern and northern areas' gas increments will meet growing energy and efficiency demands across the globe. Our specialist engineering and project delivery teams thrive in solving large-scale and complex challenges. We look forward to applying our global capability to deliver this world-scale project." That article was by Ian McConnell. This is from the Herald Scotland of Wednesday the 30th of October 2024 from the business section. Tenants had a pretty outstanding 6 months period. This article is by Scott Wright. Tennent's Lager gained market share in the Scottish on-trade despite a backdrop of unfavourable summer weather and the impact that 200,000 Scotland fans travelling to Germany for Euro 2024 had on domestic sales. C&C Group reported that Tennent's, Scottish biggest lager brand, increased its share of the on-trade by 5 percentage points over the 12 weeks to August 10th. The firm said the brand's net revenues were broadly flat over the period, with pricing offsetting a volume decline of 7%. Tennent's, which invested heavily in Euro 2024 promotional activity, grew market share as C&C made an underlying profit before exceptional items of €40.3 million in the 6 months ended August 31st, up €9.1 million on last year, helped by a rise in operating margin. The result kept the firm on track to deliver a full-year operating profit of €80 million. However, shares in the firm fell sharply as C&C warned that trading conditions remain tough, with sentiment regarding today's budget causing some consumer caution. C&C said its performance in the first half underlined its recovery from a botched systems upgrade at its Matthew Clark and Bibendum wine wholesaling business last year, and accounting errors this summer, with the issues resulting in the firm parting company with 2 chief executives. Chairman Ralph Finlay, a former chief executive of brewing and pub firm Marston's, stepped into the breach on an interim basis following the departure of Patrick McMahon in June. Speaking to the Herald, Mr. Findlay said C&C had put in resilient performance during challenging trading conditions this summer, citing the impact of poor weather and the ongoing cost of living crisis, and expressed satisfaction with efforts to put the operational issues behind it. The Scot said, "Tenants had a pretty outstanding 6 months period. Although we have very significant market share in Scotland, in the on-trade we are 55% of the lager market. We increased share by 5 percentage points on the on-trade. Share went up and it was a really strong performance by the brand." Commenting on the effect that 200,000 Scotland fans travelling to Germany in July had on the lager market here, Mr. Findlay added, "I looked at those numbers and thought, where has that gone? The answer was to Germany. Fortunately, most of them came back. So did the business." C&C was rocked by a failed systems upgrade at its wine wholesaling division in 2023. The problematic project had a material effect on profits and led to the departure of Chief Executive David Ford last year. It was then announced in June this year that Mr. Ford's successor, Mr. McMahon, had left after the company was forced to make retrospective charges totaling €17 million to its accounts from the previous financial year. Mr. McMahon has been Chief Financial Officer during the periods to which the adjustments related, and acknowledged the relevant shortcomings occurred at a time when he had overall responsibility for the group's finance function. Mr. Findlay said yesterday that after a difficult period last year, the distribution business had increased volumes by nearly 6% and customer numbers by nearly 10%. He also cited an improvement in margin, which boosted profitability significantly. Asked if he was satisfied the firm had put the worst of issues behind it, Mr. Findlay replied, "Yes, I am. The key point of all of that is not just the numbers, but what we have achieved in terms of customer service, and all the indications are that our current customer service levels are either at or above where we were prior to the implementation of that system. Good customer service is the cornerstone of winning that business back, and I think the growth in customer numbers indicates we are well on track with that." Mr. Findlay said C&C did lose customers in the aftermath of the system challenges in 2023, and declared the improved service and focus on winning those back has been one of the key objectives for this year, which is behind the 10% growth in customer numbers that we had in this first 6 months. He added, "You can see that coming back." Mulling the outlook for the second half of the year, C&C said conditions remain tough. But Mr. Findlay said, "The next key thing from a trading perspective is Christmas and New Year, and I think we are in a much better place than we were a year ago. Last year, we were still trying to resolve the various systems issues that had been occurred in 2023. This year, we are much more focused on the trading period, so we are optimistic about that." Shares in C&C closed down 4.21% or 6.8 cents at €154.8. That article was by Scott Wright. This is from the Herald Scotland of Wednesday, the 30th of October 2024, from the business section. Well-known Scottish football pub for sale as owner retires. This article is by Brian Donnelly. A well-known Scottish football pub has been put on the market. The pub next to a Scottish Premier League's club stadium offers a steady stream of customers, the agent said. The Scottish business agency is marketing the Cottage Bar on Shettleston Road in Glasgow. The agent said, Shettleston Road is ideally situated just a short distance from Celtic Park, one half of Glasgow's primary football team. This proximity brings a host of benefits to local pubs and bars, as the area becomes a hotspot on match days, drawing in fans and visitors looking for a pre- or post-game drink. The agent also said, the Cottage Bar is one of a few public bars along Shettleston Road. Many often become bustling meeting points for football supporters, creating a lively and electric atmosphere. For business owners, the regular influx of football support offers a steady stream of customers, particularly on weekends and match days. There is potential for an owner-operator with the development potential of the lounge. The asking price for the freehold is £165,000. That article was by Brian Donnelly.
For the Herald, Wednesday the 30th of October 2024, Sports section. James Forrest on why he feared he was done at Celtic. And this article was by Matthew Lindsay and is read by Ross. James Forrest has probably lost count of the number of games he has played against Dundee since making his first team debut for Celtic against Motherwell as a baby-faced teenager way back in 2010. But the winger knows he will savour being on the pitch against the Dens Park side in the William Hill Premiership match at Parkhead this evening every bit as much as all of the others. Forrest is 33 now and is in the final year of his contract. He is still performing to a high level for the Glasgow Giants at home and abroad and is valued greatly by his manager Brendan Rodgers, but he is not a regular starter these days and is unsure that will transpire when his current deal runs out in the summer. Will he be offered an extension, or will he depart the club he has been at, man and boy, for 22 years? It remains unclear. The Scotland internationalist, though, is not overly concerned about what his future holds. He is simply relishing still being a part of things as Celtic pursue more silverware. I'm just concentrating on being involved with the team, he said. I am enjoying it as much as I ever have, and I'm just focusing on the here and now. Maybe I'll start thinking about it afterwards, towards the end of the season. I'm just enjoying it at the moment. I've not done my coaching badges, but I've spoken to players who have, and there's maybe time to look at it in the next year or so. But I don't want to take my mind off playing just yet. During the spell when I wasn't involved in the team, I was maybe wondering if I'd ever play for Celtic again. So now it's a case of not taking anything for granted. You look at the end of last season, being involved, winning the league and the Scottish Cup, even going away in pre-season against was great. I'm not saying it's a second chance, but you maybe felt like you might be done. I think that's why I'm really enjoying it. Is it a case of soaking it up? Absolutely, 100%. That spell out, I've probably never had that in my career before. I was thinking, if you get back in, just make sure you really enjoy it and take it in. Forrest made an important contribution when he returned to the fray towards the end of last season. He helped Celtic to come from behind and win the Premiership for the consecutive season and beat Rangers in the Scottish Cup final. The success took his haul of medals to 24, one more than the European Cup winning captain Billy McNeill and one shy of the record total managed by the legendary Lisbon Lion Bobby Lennox. He can match and overtake his fellow Ayrshiremen in this team if things go according to plan, but his place in the pantheon of Parkhead greats is the farthest thing from his mind. Beating Dundee and maintaining his side's advantage over nearest challengers Aberdeen and Rangers in the league table is all that concerns him. I don't really think about the medals thing, he said. It's always nice to hear it afterwards, but in the here and now, it's October, so you don't want to think about it now. You just want to work hard, game to game, and hopefully that stuff comes. It's been a really good season so far, even going back to pre-season and the results and performances we had. But we've really kicked on domestically and in the Champions League. It's really enjoyable to be part of it. The most important thing is we concentrate on ourselves. If you look at what other teams are doing, you can take your eye off what you need to do. The manager and staff always drill that into us here. No matter who we are playing, we need to take care of our own jobs. You saw that in the games after Europe. They were hard games. The manager changed a few players, but we've still got the results. It's good for everyone involved that the manager is showing trust in his squad. Forrest, who is now in his 16th season as a Celtic player, has been joined in the starting lineup in recent weeks by the likes of Austin Trustley, Alex Vale and Luke McCowan, and he feels the new boys have been every bit as important to their form as the old guard. All the players have settled in and off the park, he said. We could see from the first day in training they would settle in on it. The staff make everything clear, so it's easy to settle quickly. You can see that in a way they are performing. It's good for the players who were already in the squad as it pushes everyone to perform well. It's a busy schedule. The likes of Cam and Greg have missed the last few games, but the team is still performing. That's good for them as well. If we were maybe struggling, then there might be pressure on them to get back, but there are players here who can be more than capable when called upon. McCowan, who scored his first start for his boyhood heroes in their 3-0 win over Motherwell at Fir Park on Sunday, has particularly impressed the veteran. Forrest is keen to get back in the Scotland squad for the Nations League matches against Croatia and Poland next month, and thinks his compatriot is capable of representing his country in the future too. The first training session Luke had was the day before the Rangers game, and right away he came in and looked really confident, he said. You could tell he was really buzzing to have signed. He's just kicked on. He's settled in the changing room and you see his performances on the park. Could he be one of the bargains of the season? Definitely. You've seen it already with the impact he's made from the bench, and it was good for him to get a start the other day. He's a Celtic player now and doesn't look out of place. He'll want to keep going and build on this. I think if you ask Luke, he'd say the most important thing for him right now is to concentrate on here. But if he keeps doing what he's doing, then he'll definitely get the ability, confidence and character to be involved with Scotland. He's made the step up to Celtic, and I would have no doubts about him if he got called up. And that article is by Matthew Lindsay, and it was read by Ross. For the Herald, Wednesday the 30th of October 2024. Sports section. Kieran Tierney really sharp amid Arsenal injury update. This article is by Ewan Patton and is read by Ross. Kieran Tierney is looking sharp amidst Arsenal boss Mikel Arteta as the former Celtic defender edges closer to a return to fitness. The defender has been out of action since sustaining a serious hamstring injury during Scotland's 1-1 draw with Switzerland at Euro 2024. He's missed the first 3 months of the season, with the 27-year-old's future very much up in the air after falling out of favour at the Emirates some time ago. His last outing as an Arsenal shirt came in the 2023 Community Shield match against Manchester City at Wembley. He then spent basically the whole of last season on loan at Real Sociedad at La Liga. He made 26 appearances for the club. Now, Tierney is close to making his injury comeback. Arteta revealed the news when speaking to the media ahead of the side's League Cup tie against Preston North End tomorrow. He said, I think he's quite close. He looks good, really sharp. He hasn't trained with the team yet. Hopefully he can do that in the next week or two. Meanwhile, Celtic manager Brendan Rodgers has admitted he could move Dazin Medza up against if Adam Ida is sidelined for a prolonged period of time by the ankle injury he suffered against Motherwell at Fir Park on Sunday. Rodgers was awaiting the results of a scan on Republic of Ireland internationalist Ida when he spoke to the media today ahead of the William Hill Premiership match against Dundee at Parkhead tomorrow evening. He is optimistic of the $9 million summer signing will not be sidelined long-term as a result of the reckless challenge, which opposition defender Liam Gordon received a red card from referee David Dickinson for. He was subjected to. But the Northern Irishman confessed that winger Maeda, who netted a double when he was deployed through the middle of the Premier Sports Cup win over Hibernian back in August in the absence of Kyogo Furuhashi and Aida, could be moved into attack again if he is. And that article was by Ewan Patton and was read by Ross.
From the Herald Scotland, Thursday the 24th of October, from the news section. Michelin to unveil UK restaurant guide in 2025 at Glasgow's Kelvingrove. Report by Jodie Harrison. Michelin has announced that its world-famous guide to Britain's best restaurants is to be unveiled in Scotland for the first time. The restaurant reviewer said that its next Great Britain and Ireland guide for 2025 will be revealed at a ceremony in Glasgow's Kelvingrove Art Gallery. The event in February next year will also see the announcement of the renowned Michelin stars for UK restaurants, and also the Green Stars recognising pioneers in the field of sustainable gastronomy. A range of special awards, celebrating exceptional industry professionals, will be presented on the night, with all chefs running a starred restaurant, as well as journalists, influencers, partners and industry leaders invited to the ceremony. Gwendol Polinek, International Director of the Michelin Guide, said that Scotland was a home of delicious produce, timeless culinary traditions and warm hospitality, and that his team was thrilled to be bringing the event to Glasgow. Mr. Polinek said, "We are absolutely thrilled to announce that, for the first time, the Michelin Guide ceremony for Great Britain and Ireland will be presented from Scotland. The buzzing city of Glasgow is a fitting location to celebrate the incredible gastronomic talent across the UK and the Republic of Ireland. The Michelin Guide team are hard at work preparing an event that will honour the passion, determination and skill of everyone who makes our industry so special." The Scottish Government has provided £90,000 funding to Scotland Food and Drink, which has also invested £50,000 to enable the Michelin Guide to launch to take place in Glasgow. It is the latest in a series of high-profile events the city has hosted in recent years, including COP26 and the 2023 UCI Cycling World Championships. In 2026, the city will host the Commonwealth Games. Glasgow was also recently named the friendliest city in the UK at the Condé Nast UK 2024 Reader's Choice Awards. Ian Baxter, Chief Executive of Scotland Food and Drink, said that the event will showcase Glasgow and Scotland to the culinary world as an outstanding location for produce, and also enhance Scotland's ambition to be a globally renowned food tourism destination. He said, "Scotland's food and drink is world renowned, from our iconic produce such as seafood, salmon or whisky, to lesser known products like confectionery or bakery. Chefs both at home and abroad recognise the provenance, quality and tradition that creates our abundant larder and makes our produce so unique. It's therefore incredibly exciting to be working in partnership with Glasgow Life to bring the Michelin Guide Great Britain and Ireland ceremony to Scotland for the first time in February 2025. A cocktail after-party for the event will be held in the city's Old Fruit Market, while the launch ceremony will be broadcast live via the Michelin Guide's YouTube channel." Bailey Annette Christie, Chair of Glasgow Life and Glasgow City Council, Convener for Culture, Sport and International Relations, said, "Glasgow is home to one of the UK's best food and drink scenes, so it is an honour for the city to host the first ever Michelin Guide Great Britain and Ireland Awards ceremony held in Scotland. As an event which serves as a global celebration of culinary excellence, our guests will feel at home in Glasgow, where residents and visitors are rightly proud of the city's extensive and multicultural food and drink offer. Hosting an event of this scale will only raise the profile of Glasgow's incredible food and drink scene." Cabinet Secretary for Rural Affairs, Land Reform and Islands, Marie Goujon, said, "From our iconic traditional produce such as whisky, red meat and salmon, to Scotland's contemporary chefs and artisan producers, our country is world famous for the high quality of food and drink we produce. That's why I'm delighted that the highly respected Michelin Awards will be coming to Glasgow next year, supported by funding from the Scottish Government. This prestigious event will showcase some of the most exciting food and drink on offer across the nation and help place Scotland firmly in the centre of the gastronomic map." In an article written by Jodie Harrison. From the Herald Scotland, Thursday the 24th of October, from the news section, 1 million Police Scotland working days lost due to absences. Report by Hannah Brown. Over 1 million working days have been lost within Police Scotland since 2020 due to staff absences, new figures reveal. Data obtained via a Freedom of Information request from the Scottish Conservatives shows 1,020,930 Police Scotland working days have been lost due to ill health or injury between 2020 and June this year. A total of 239,507, almost a quarter, of the sick days were down to officers suffering from psychological disorders. Between July last year and June this year, nearly 1 in 6 officers available to the force were unable to be deployed at some point. The Scottish Conservatives Justice spokesperson Liam Kerr says these eye-watering figures demonstrate the SNP's failures to support Scotland's police. The North East MSP said, "The rate of absences within Police Scotland in recent years is staggering. Dedicated officers are being forced to do their job with one hand tied behind their back due to savage and sustained SNP cuts. There's a vicious circle of overwhelmed officers going off sick, which in turn increases the stress on their remaining colleagues, who are more likely to fall ill too. SNP ministers are completely disconnected from the pressures facing police officers on a daily basis and have repeatedly neglected their needs. The news comes as the number of police officers in Scotland has fallen to their lowest level since the SNP took power in 2007. Earlier this year, total police numbers in Scotland dropped to 16,207. However, last week, Chief Constable Joe Farrell welcomed 250 new recruits. The Scottish Government said despite working under deeply challenging financial circumstances due to the UK Government settlement, they are providing £1.55 billion of police funding this year, which will allow Police Scotland to take on more recruits this year than any time since 2013. A Scottish Government spokesperson said, These figures cover a period of more than 4 years, including the COVID-19 pandemic, across a workforce of more than 16,000 officers. We welcome the Chief Constable's commitment to workforce well-being and that police officers and staff can access a range of services, including access to a new 24/7 employee assistance programme and have direct access to occupational health services. Police Scotland indicated that there were around 16,400 officers at the beginning of August, with over 690 new recruits since March. Police Scotland said they are taking measures to improve staff well-being and are hoping to increase officer numbers before the end of this year. Deputy Chief Constable Alan Spears said, "The Chief Constable has prioritised the health and well-being of our officers and staff, whose feedback was integral in agreeing a £17 million investment in enhanced welfare provisions. These include a new 24/7 employee assistance programme, direct access to occupational health services to support officers and staff in their journey back to health and work, and a greater focus on mental health. Our officer numbers on the 1st of October were 16,425, and we anticipate reaching 16,600 in November." In an article written by Hannah Brown.
The Herald, Thursday the 25th of October, from the news section. Body recovered near Barra after being spotted by ferry crew, by Jodie Harrison. Coast Guard and lifeboat crews have recovered a man's body from the water near a Scottish island after it was spotted by staff aboard a passing ferry. Workers aboard the MV Isle of Mull alerted emergency services after seeing an object in the water near the island of Barra. The ferry was unable to stop because of weather conditions, but raised the alarm to emergency crews ashore, the Press and Journal reports. The ferry was crossing from Loch Boysdale to Oban when the discovery was made. A man's body was then recovered from the water. Police said that the death is being treated as unexplained and that inquiries are ongoing to establish the full circumstances. A Police Scotland spokesperson said, "Around 2:35 p.m. on Thursday the 24th of October, we received a report of a body in the water near the Isle of Barra. Emergency services attended and the body of a man has been recovered. The death is being treated as unexplained and inquiries are ongoing to establish the full circumstances." The Herald, Thursday the 25th of October, from the news section. 1,600 people convicted of sex crimes had previous offences. More than 1,000 people who committed sexual crimes in a 5-year period already had previous convictions. The Scottish Conservatives have raised questions on whether punishment and rehabilitation requirements imposed on offenders are stringent enough. It comes as data obtained by the Herald through Freedom of Information requests revealed 1,686 people convicted of a sexual crime between 2017 to 18 and 21 to 22 had committed previous offences. The previous convictions relate to any crimes committed within the last 10 years. In the 5-year time frame since 2017, 258 people charged with rape had committed previous offences. The data obtained from the Scottish Government showed. And there were 347 people convicted of sexual assault who had previous convictions, as did 297 people charged with causing another person to view sexual activity or images. The figures also included 251 people who were convicted of possessing indecent images of a child between 2017-18 and 2021-22, despite having previous charges. A further 163 previous convicts committed offences of communicating indecently, while 91 people threatened to or did disclose indecent images. Other sex crimes and prostitution offences made up 279 of the reconvictions. The Scottish Government has said there are strict assessments conducted to assess the risk a person convicted of a sex offence poses to the public. Sharon Dowie, Victims and Community Safety spokeswoman for the Scottish Tories, said, "These shocking figures sum up how the SNP's relentless weakening of the justice system is repeatedly failing brave victims. Those convicted of such vile offences have been free to offend again because all too often they are not being properly punished. SNP ministers are completely disconnected from the public who want these criminals to feel the full force of the law. It is time that they show some common sense, stop pandering to the needs of criminals and ensure victims get the justice they deserve in these cases." A breakdown of the figures showed that the number of people with previous convictions who went on to commit sexual offences had increased in almost every category. In 2017 to 18, 45 reoffenders committed rape and attempted rape, but the figures had increased to 67 in 2021-22, a 48.8% increase. Those in possession of indecent images of children increased by 7.3%, from 55 in 2017 to 18 to 59 in 2021-22. In July, the Scottish Government published the general reconviction rates for offenders reconvicted in a year. The figure sat at 26.9 in 2020 to 21, a 2.6 percentage point increase from 24.3 in 2019-20. For sexual crimes, the reconviction rate decreased in a year from 10.7% to 8.8% in 2020 to 21, among the lowest levels in 24 years. The data also showed that 2.6 of all of those who have reoffended in 2021 to 22 have had 1 or 2 previous convictions for sexual offences. And, in the same period, 8.7% of those whose most recent crime was a sexual offence had 1 or 2 previous convictions of the same crimes. A Scottish spokesperson said, "The proportion of registered sex offenders convicted of further offending is 2.1%, and sentencing, including for sexual offending, is a matter for the independent courts." Where a person has a conviction for sexual offences, there is a robust statutory framework to assess, manage and reduce the risk they pose to the public. That was an article by Rebecca McCurdy.
From the Herald Scotland, Sunday the 27th of October, from the news section. Fuel poverty does not discriminate by age, campaigners warn. Article written by Gabriel Mackay. Rising fuel prices, combined with the ongoing cost of living crisis, could leave thousands of children in poverty struggling this winter, campaigners have warned. The Ofgem price cap was raised once again in October, meaning the typical household energy bill will be £1,717. National Energy Action estimates that around 20% of households in the UK, close to 6 million, are in fuel poverty. In Scotland, that is defined as households which have to spend 10% or more of their income to maintain satisfactory heating and have a remaining income 90% or below the UK minimum income standards. In 2022, 31% of households met that definition, with 18.5% in extreme fuel poverty, which is when a household has to spend 20% or more of its adjusted net income on heating. 89% of households with an annual income less than £15,000 were in fuel poverty. Those numbers have risen in recent years with the increase in energy costs, with extreme fuel poverty rising from 12.4% to 18.5%. Energy suppliers are permitted under Ofgem rules to forcibly move customers onto more expensive prepayment tariffs if they fall behind on their bills, while the companies are also permitted to deduct arrears from benefits at source. A YouGov poll conducted for the children's charity Barnardo's revealed last month that 33% of parents had cut back to save money on energy bills. Caroline, a mother of 4 whose income support can be as low as £85 per fortnight due to deductions including council tax arrears, said in a research paper published by Morag Trainer, "I was supposed to give a meter reading 10 days ago and I still haven't done it because I'm just terrified of what it's going to say. Then you've got to pay it and I don't have the money to pay it. My son's had bronchitis twice this year, hospitalised once. He's only 5 months old. I suffer anxiety and have celiac disease. I should be on a gluten-free diet but can't afford it. I eat the kids' leftovers. As long as they're fed, I don't care. I drink a lot of tea because that fills you up a bit. My hair has been falling out in the last couple of months. It's coming out in clumps." Research into the impact of fuel poverty in households with children shows a range of negative outcomes. A study in the US looked at 5 cities and compared 2 groups of children from low-income families. One group lived in families which received a winter fuel subsidy, the other was a similar group who did not. The results showed that infants in the latter group were 30% more likely to be admitted to hospital or primary care clinics in the first 3 years of their life, and 29% more likely to be underweight. The study followed the infants into childhood and discovered that those not receiving the winter fuel subsidy consumed 10% fewer calories than those in the other group during winter months, with parents choosing between heating and eating. Another study of 14,000 English children by the National Centre for Social Research found 15% of children who lived in a cold home for 3 or more years experienced respiratory problems, compared to 7% in energy efficient homes. The same study concluded that issues like truancy and early tobacco and alcohol use were closely linked to fuel poverty, and 28% of adolescents who had lived for long periods in poorly heated homes were at significant mental health risk, compared to 4% of similar children in adequately heated homes. Carl McHale, who organised the Power to the People campaign amidst the 2022 energy price spiral, said, "The Labour government's scandalous decision to means test the winter fuel payment has focused attention on the relationship between pensioner poverty and energy prices. The reality, however, is that the scourge of fuel poverty does not discriminate by age. Indeed, some 4 million children in the UK are being raised in fuel poverty." Only this week, a new report found that 28% of kids who live in cold and damp homes are at serious risk of developing anxiety and depression. Across Britain, the lives of young people, just like pensioners, are afterthoughts for an energy system whose priority is profit. Cold homes are for kids, are fine, for as long as Centrica, Shell and Scottish Power make millions. Meanwhile, Britain's continued dependence on fossil fuels and the absence of a just transition worthy of the name ensures increased danger to the planet that our children stand to inherit. Politicians are failing young people in the present and are auctioning their futures to the fossil fuel industry. This Labour government promised change. The public, be they pensioners or school pupils, are waiting. and the article was written by Gabriel Mackay. From the Herald Scotland, Sunday the 27th of October, from the news section, police hunt for driver after pensioner killed in Hamilton hit and run. Report by Jodie Harrison. Police are searching for a driver who fled the scene of a collision that killed a 70-year-old man in South Lanarkshire on Sunday. The pedestrian was struck by a small black car, which officers said could be a Mercedes A-Class, at around 12:40am on Quarry Street in Hamilton. The man was pronounced dead at the scene by emergency services. Police Scotland issued a public appeal to help find the driver who fled the scene. Sergeant John Houston said, "Our thoughts at this time are with the family and friends of the man who died. Extensive inquiries are ongoing to trace the car involved and its occupants as soon as possible. I urge anyone who was in the area of Quarry Street on Sunday morning around the time of the crash, who either witnessed the crash take place or who has any information on the car involved, to contact us." Sergeant Houston added, "Anyone with dashcam or personal footage is asked to review it and can please get in touch if it contains anything relevant to our investigation. If you have any information that could help, please contact 101, quoting reference number 0171 of October 27. And the article was by Jodie Harrison. From the Herald Scotland, Sunday the 27th of October, from the news section, Sir Joseph Noel Paton exhibition opens in Dunfermline. Report by Jodie Harrison. Almost 100 descendants of an eminent 19th century Scots painter, greatly admired by Queen Victoria, have gathered to honour the artist. 3 generations linked to Sir Joseph Noel Paton have attended a reception at a major retrospective being held in the artist's home city of Dunfermline. Family members have loaned 5 oil paintings and more than 30 drawings to the exhibition, which runs at Dunfermline Carnegie Library and Galleries until 9th of February. Guests at the reception on Friday, 25th of October, range from Paton's oldest surviving great-grandchild, 91-year-old Dermot Campbell of Argyll, to his youngest great-great-great-grandchild, 10-year-old Arlo Agnew from the US. The free exhibition of 80-plus oil paintings, drawings and engravings seeks to foster a fresh appreciation of Paton, who enjoyed vast popularity during his lifetime. Paton was the Queen's limner in Scotland, the art equivalent of Poet Laureate, and poignant sketches of Queen Victoria and her children are among the attractions on show. Such a large gathering of descendants seems appropriate, as family life was hugely important to Paton, despite the demands and distractions of widespread fame. Contrary to the austere Victorian stereotype of fatherhood, Paton was very much a hands-on dad, nicknaming his large, noisy brood of 11 children the Infantry. Domestically themed works in the show include The Lullaby, a tender portrait of Paton's wife Maggie and young son Dermot. There is also a painting of his 5-year-old son Callie, who died from diphtheria. One of Paton's great-great-granddaughters, Edinburgh-based Kat Berry, who is descended from Paton's son Dermot, said, "It is hugely exciting to see this wonderful retrospective after so many years of planning. It will also be great to see all these sketches kept in the family for generations that have never previously been displayed. This retrospective offers us a rare insight into Noel Paton's creative process. We really hope the exhibition will be widely enjoyed and give him the recognition he deserves." One of Paton's great-granddaughters, Diana Noel Paton, who is also Edinburgh-based and descended from Dermot, says there is something for everyone to enjoy in Paton's work. Visitors to the exhibition will find Scottish history, pre-Raphaelite painting, royalty, religion, weaponry, family, dogs, fairies. The list goes on, says Diana. It has been thrilling to hold this family gathering, surrounded by so many of Noel Paton's paintings and drawings. It has been a once-in-a-lifetime occasion. Most of us have never met each other before, so there has been so much to catch up on. The family gathering was hosted by the cultural charity On Fife, which runs the Carnegie Library and Galleries, says exhibition curator Leslie Ann Lettuce. We're delighted to be hosting this opportunity for the Peyton family to connect, many of them for the first time. It is also a wonderful tribute to Noel. I think he would be overjoyed to see all of them gather together here in his hometown to celebrate his life and work. And that report was written by Jodie Harrison and read by me, Ian McKenna.
The Herald, Monday the 26th of October, from the news section. Flights boost for Scottish Airport as popular route returns. Glasgow Airport has received a boost with the return of direct flights between Scotland's largest city and Cork after almost 5 years. The new Cork to Glasgow service is operated by Aer Lingus regional operator Emerald Airlines using an ATR 72-600 turboprop aircraft. The year-round flights, which began operating on Sunday, run 4 times a week on every Monday, Thursday, Friday and Sunday. The new service adds 30,000 extra seats to the winter schedule at Cork Airport and is the only service connecting Glasgow with Munster and the south of Ireland. The route was previously operated until 2021, when flights between Glasgow and Cork were among a number of routes cancelled by Aer Lingus after operator Stobart Air ended its contract with the Irish airline. Commenting back in August on the new route, Ian Loch, head of commercial at Emerald Airlines, said, "We are delighted to be expanding our network from Cork Airport with the introduction of our new Glasgow service. We are equally pleased to announce the increase in flights between Cork and Bristol. These enhancements underscore our commitment to providing our customers with more travel options and greater convenience. By expanding our offerings from Cork, we aim to meet the growing customer demand and ensure our passengers have even more opportunities when travelling from Cork Airport." That was an article by Craig Williams. The Herald, Monday the 26th of October, from the news section. Robeson opens door to lifting council tax freeze amid talks. Shauna Robeson has not ruled out ending the council tax freeze as she seeks to get support in Holyrood for her budget plans. The Finance Secretary needs to get backing from opposition MSPs to get her financial proposals passed in the Scottish Parliament, as the SNP governs as a minority administration. Initial discussions have taken place with all the other parties, with a new round of talks to take place in the coming weeks, before her plans are announced to Holyrood on December the 4th. The Scottish Greens, which has supported every SNP budget since 2016, have said they will not vote for the plans if they include a freeze on council tax. Former First Minister Humza Yousaf announced the measure to the SNP conference in autumn last year, angering local authorities and the Greens, who he was then in government with. Speaking to BBC Scotland's show, Ms Robeson, who had to announce £500 million of cuts in September after a financial shortfall, was asked if she would lift the council tax freeze in order to reach a deal with the Greens. "Well, I've said in answer to that I of course will want to set out our position on taxation and local taxation as part of the budget process. We've been having very constructive, detailed discussions with COSLA around what the local government settlement, which of course will be a package. It won't be just one thing, it will be a package of measures. The decision on the council tax will form part of that package." Pressed by the BBC if she was not committed currently to maintaining the freeze to council tax, Ms Robeson replied, "I am not going to announce one element of a package of measures around local government funding in advance of the budget. That wouldn't be sensible." She was pressed that if she did lift the freeze, the move would bring in more public money. Ms Robeson replied, "Well, we'll look at that in the round as part of a package. What I do agree with is that we need to make sure that local government, as well as all of our other public services, get the support that they require." She added that she understood the financial pressures local government were under and that she would take that discussion forward with council body COSLA in the appropriate manner. Appearing on the same programme, Lorna Slater, co-leader of the Scottish Greens, reiterated comments she made to the Herald on Saturday, saying her party was absolutely willing to bring down the Scottish Government by voting against their budget. She rejected claims her position was motivated by getting back at the SNP for sacking them from government in April. Ms Slater criticised the government for rolling back on previously agreed policies like free bus travel for asylum seekers and cash for nature restoration. She said the SNP need to know they cannot take Green votes for granted. She added, "We are fully prepared to vote against an unacceptable budget, but as previously, we go into it in good faith." Asked if the Greens are willing to bring down the government, she said, "Absolutely. It is so important that Scotland's budget reflects the urgency of the climate and nature emergencies." Ms Slater also said she wanted the continuation of universal free school meals. Put to her she was settling scores over the ending of the Butte House Agreement, she said this was absolutely not the case. The Greens are also pushing for higher taxes on private jets, mansions and businesses that sell alcohol. Meanwhile, the UK Labour government will unveil its budget on Wednesday, with ministers insisting working people will not see higher taxes on their payslip. Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson repeated warnings that the financial statement will include tough choices, but she insisted it is a choice between investment or decline for the UK. However, the Cabinet Minister refused to say whether a small business owner earning £13,000 a year is considered a working person, who should be protected from tax rises in Rachel Reeves' first budget. Facing broadcasters on Sunday morning, Ms Phillipson was repeatedly pressed to define the Labour government's use of the term working people, who has promised to spare from key tax increases. "You are inviting me to speculate about the nature of the question that you're asking," she told the BBC's Sunday with Laura Coonsburg programme. "What I'm saying is that when people look at their payslips, they will not see higher taxes." Speculation has mounted that people who make money from assets such as property could face greater levies in the budget, after Sir Keir Starmer suggested they do not fall within his definition of working people. Labour had pledged in his manifesto not to raise taxes on working people, explicitly ruling out increases to VAT, national insurance and income tax. But the Chancellor is expected to raise employers, rather than employee, national insurance contributions by at least 1 percentage point in the budget, which could hit small businesses particularly hard. That was an article by Kathleen Nutt. The Herald, Monday the 26th of October, from the news section. Scottish Labour urged to negotiate with UK ministers on Scottish visas, an exclusive by Hannah Brown. Two rural SNP MSPs are urging the Scottish Labour Deputy Leader to persuade the UK Government to introduce Scottish visas. Their calls come after the UK Government ruled out the scheme, which would give limited immigration powers to Holyrood in order to help attract more overseas workers north of the border. In a letter seen exclusively by the Herald, SNP MSPs Karen Adam and Emma Roddick say they are seeking urgent clarity from Dame Jackie Baillie and are calling for her to negotiate with UK counterparts to bring forward the scheme. In June this year, Jackie Baillie told the Herald she was open to a discussion on the Scottish visas with the UK government. And in the House of Commons earlier this month, Glasgow East MP John Grady said the Home Secretary Yvette Cooper was determined to set up an independent Scottish system. Since these comments, however, Scottish Labour and the UK Government have made clear they do not support the introduction of a Scottish-specific visa. Instead, Scottish Labour think the system should remain integrated with the UK, as there are opportunities for Scotland-specific needs to be added to the occupations included on the UK skilled worker visa route. The SNP, however, believe devolving immigration powers by introducing a Scottish visa would allow Scotland to attract and retain people with the skills and attributes for communities and the economy to flourish. Sectors such as hospitality, the care sector and farming have struggled to fill vacancies across Europe, with problems particularly acute in the Highlands and Islands. In their letter to the Scottish Labour Deputy Leader, the MSPs for Banffshire and Buchan Coast and the Highlands and Islands said, "Migration is an issue which is crucial for our future, but the Scottish Government doesn't currently have the powers needed to deliver tailored immigration policies for Scotland." The two rural SNP MSPs added, Migration to Scotland supports economic growth and the delivery of public services and helps to address a serious issue of long-term demographic change, especially in rural areas, such as the ones we represent. Scottish Labour's General Election Manifesto pledged to reform the UK Migration Advisory Committee and to ensure migration and skills policies work for every part of the UK, while ending long-term reliance on overseas workers in some parts of the economy. Former First Minister Nicola Sturgeon launched a plan for a Scottish visa pilot scheme back in 2020, which would have allowed businesses and organisations in remote and rural communities an exemption from UK immigration rules over hiring EU and other foreign nationals. It would also have enabled firms to recruit staff from overseas, who earned less than the required income threshold set by the Home Office, to obtain a visa under the government's regulations. Scottish ministers sought approval for the scheme. However, the Home Office blocked the pilot programme. A Scottish Labour spokesperson said, "The needs of our economy are different across the regions and nations, and different sectors have different needs. Labour have always said that we will ensure that our migration and skills policy work for every part of the UK. Given skills and employment support are devolved, we will work with the Scottish Government when designing workforce plans for different sectors." The UK Government said they have nothing further to add and their position remains the same. A Home Office spokesperson said, "This is not government policy and not something the Home Secretary is considering."
From the Herald, Sunday 27th of October 2024. Sports section. Graham Robertson set for PGA Tour debut after Bermuda win. By Nick Roger, golf correspondent. Talk about good vibrations. Graham Robertson has been riding a wave of success for so long, he should be serenaded under the tee by the Beach Boys. A prolific dominant force on the domestic front, Robertson took his name across the Atlantic last week and conquered in Bermuda, with victory in the Gosling's Invitational. Not only did the Grangemouth Pro pick up a cheque for $11,000, it was the biggest of his career. He also earned an invitation to hobnob with some of the stars of the PGA Tour in the $6.9 million Butterfield Bermuda Championship next month. "My wife is already planning a return trip," chuckled Robertson. "But hang on a minute. If her husband keeps going at this rate, Mrs. Robertson may not get that jolly jaunt back to paradise after all." He's off to Spain on Monday for Stage 2 of the DP World Tour's qualifying school. If he overcomes that hurdle, then the 6-round final awaits. And if he makes the cut there, then there's no chance he'll get out to Bermuda in time because it's the same week. Admittedly, that's a lot of what-ifs, and Robertson will cross that bridge when, or ever indeed, he comes to it. "There would be a wee clash of dates and I certainly couldn't get from Spain to Bermuda," he said. "It's a nice problem to have, though." For the time being, Robertson is savouring another success in a season that's been jam-packed with them. On the PGA's Tartan Tour, he won the Northern Open, retained his Scottish PGA Championship title and topped the Order of Merit. On Paul Lawrie's Tartan Pro Tour, meanwhile, he won twice, finished at the summit of the rankings and earned promotion to next year's European Challenge Tour. Robertson has plundered so many spoils of golfing war, his mantelpiece must be the size of the Hoover Dam. "Ever since I qualified for the Open at Hoylake last year, I've been riding a wave," he said. "I don't know what's going on, but I'm trying to stay in that wave for as long as I can. It's one thing winning in Scotland, but coming out to Bermuda was a totally different animal. I was out of my comfort zone, and it was quite stressful, trying to hold on to a lead. But it was great to see that my game can travel and hold up in a very different environment." Not so long ago, Robertson, a fine amateur in his younger days, was working as a salesman for a building supplies company, having taken a back step from the game to support his family. The 36-year-old finally turned pro in 2021, and with fresh perspective and motivation, he is revelling in his second coming. "Looking back to when I was selling timber from an office, it would have been ridiculous to think of getting a PGA Tour start," he reflected. "I've already had a few messages from some of the guys I used to work with, taking the pee a wee bit. To them, I was just the guy who worked at the yard. They didn't know I was a decent amateur golfer before I started there. I probably stayed in that job longer than I planned. I got used to a regular wage coming in. We all have bills to pay, and I found myself just ticking along. When COVID hit, like a lot of people, I reassessed my career. There was more to life than just working. The opportunity to turn pro was there, and I decided to go for it. I'm a latecomer to professional golf. I'm still fresh. Everything is still quite new. Maybe I appreciate it more now than I'd have gone straight into the amateur game when I'd been at it for 15 years. You see a lot of guys who've been chipping away for a long time, and it's maybe got them down a bit. Robertson is certainly on the up. There's barely time for him to draw a breath as he performs a quick turnaround to get out of Spain for the qualifying school test. I'm hoping it's dry on Sunday so I can hang my washing out, he chortled. I'm going to Q school with nothing to lose. I'm going to get a great run of form with the security of a Challenge Tour card already there. It's a great position to be in. Good vibrations indeed. That article was by Nick Roger.
From the Herald Scotland, Monday the 28th of October 2024. From the Voices section. Colossal Brexit damage embraced fully by Labour and Starmer. Article written by Ian McConnell, Group Business Editor. The elephant in the room has been looming large, but Sir Keir Starmer has continued to studiously ignore it. That elephant, for anyone who has forgotten, is the UK's hard Brexit, and its impact on businesses has been highlighted yet again in 2 surveys published last week. Sir Keir seems content, however, to stick with the hard Brexit, in line with his pledge in the run-up to the July 4th general election that Labour will not take the UK back into the European Union or single market or even the customs union. It is a bizarre state of affairs, particularly given we seem set for a miserable budget from Labour on Wednesday. The Labour government has claimed that growth is its number one priority. However, it has yet to provide any kind of sign that its policies can deliver a meaningful boost to growth. And, even taking into account the political drivers of Sir Keir's pro-Brexit stance, as he appears at pains to pander to the Red Wall voters, it still seems strange that Labour is effectively embracing the colossal damage to growth from the UK's hard Brexit rather than doing anything about this. Sir Keir's conversion to Brexit does not, obviously, change the simple fact that this folly has been and will continue to be hugely detrimental to a UK economy for which Labour claims to care. And the enormous effect on businesses is plain from their great desire to see the Brexit pain alleviated. A survey of 502 UK business leaders undertaken by Censuswide on behalf of Specialist Research and Development Tax Advisor Forrest Brown showed the policy commitment from Labour that would be most valued by respondents is making the UK's relationship with the EU work better for business. The proportion of business leaders flagging this as the key policy commitment they want most from Sir Keir's government is 22%. And it is surely even more telling that this is significantly ahead of the desire for the policies in joint second place in the most valued league table generated by the survey responses: stability and certainty in taxation, and reforming business rates with a new system of business property taxation. Each of these was flagged by 16% of business leaders. My column in the Herald last Wednesday, analysing the results of the Forrest Brown survey and their implications, observed, what business most wants to see from the new Labour government should provide much food for thought for those who say Brexit is done. That said, thoughtfulness and reflection have appeared to be in very short supply indeed among arch-Brexiters. It concluded, this survey and a plethora of others, as well as the economic data and a welter of expert analysis and comment, show the scale of the damage being done by the hard Brexit. It should come as absolutely no surprise to anyone that the European issue is identified as the biggest one for businesses in the Forrest Brown poll. What is more, the survey should make uncomfortable reading, not just for the arch-Brexiters, but for convert to the cause Sir Keir as the Prime Minister continues to fail to wake up to the enormous importance of European single market membership. Brexit was also in focus in a survey published by banking group Santander last week. This showed 31% of UK businesses calling for support with reducing overseas regulatory requirements post-Brexit, including customs procedures, obtaining appropriate licenses for trading, and strengthened mutual recognition of professional standards and qualifications across Europe. The big problem remains that Labour's red lines around not rejoining the EU, the single market, or even the customs union severely limit what Sir Keir will be able to achieve in terms of improving the UK's relations with the EU. He has even ruled out a youth mobility scheme with the bloc. And the simple truth is that warm words will not take the Prime Minister very far in terms of his stated desire to improve relations with the EU. So it is difficult to conclude other than that Labour has decided, for whatever reason, to fully embrace the hard Brexit damage. The only other conclusion that could be drawn is that Sir Keir and his cabinet do not understand what Brexit is doing to the UK economy and society, and how much they have limited themselves in addressing this damage by boxing themselves in with their red lines. A lack of understanding seems unlikely, however, given how vociferously Sir Keir argued against Brexit in late 2019. While he has performed a complete U-turn, seemingly for political reasons, surely he must still know the actual effects of Brexit. After all, he warned of these back in 2019, as did a raft of other experts. And, as was inevitable, given the simplicity of the transmission mechanisms relating to the ending of frictionless trade with the UK's largest trading partner, and the loss of hugely valuable free movement of people between the country and the European Economic Area, the warnings have proved most accurate. Things have transpired pretty much as experts said they would in the wake of the hard Brexit delivered by the Boris Johnson administration. Sir Keir continues to talk about making Brexit work. However, even the arch-Brexiters have piped down on their entirely spurious claims about Brexit benefits. The bill for households and businesses, meanwhile, continues to rack up in a way that should be plain for all to see. However, while fretting over the state of the public finances, Labour has eschewed a course of action on the European issue which could dramatically improve growth and tax revenues. That article was written by Ian McConnell and read to you by Elizabeth. From the Herald Scotland, Monday the 28th of October, 2024. From the Voices section. Reeves must make it easier for smaller firms to grow their workforce. Article written by Colin Borland. When John Swinney delivered his keynote speech on Scotland's public finances and priorities last week, the venue could hardly have been more appropriate. The Futures Institute in Edinburgh is part of the city's old Royal Infirmary that has been beautifully renovated as a prestigious facility for the University of Edinburgh. Given what's at stake in the coming weeks for the economic direction of Scotland and the UK as a whole, a building named for the future seems entirely apt for focusing minds. The message from the First Minister was, "Invest to grow," as he called on Wednesday's looming UK budget to change fiscal rules, thus allowing for more borrowing to invest in public services. It was interesting, incidentally, that questions from the business representatives in the audience were about how any such investment would be tied to public sector reform, not just in terms of levering in private capital, but tapping into the expertise of Scotland's innovative small firms, who could perhaps deliver better, more efficient customer services. That's one to watch in the longer term. But in the immediate future, all eyes and ears are on Wednesday's budget, and it's fair to say the mood music so far has definitely been in a minor key. You won't have failed to notice there have been weeks of speculation about business tax rises, most notably a hike in employers' national insurance contributions, NICs. Given how clear the UK government has been on the importance of economic growth, and its status as a prerequisite for many of its other policies, I would be surprised if they really want to make it more expensive to hire or even retain staff. If we're going to grow our way out of this financial hole, you don't make it harder for the very businesses you're relying on, the nimble smaller employers, to expand their workforce. When employing staff becomes more expensive, your options are limited. You have to either raise your prices, not a viable option for many in the current climate, or cut from somewhere else, perhaps shelving plans for investment or pay rises. Fortunately, there are things the government could do to support small firms looking to expand, such as increasing the employment allowance, effectively an employer's NICS tax threshold. If you then index this to match future increases in the national living wage, you'd help small employers maintain the number of entry-level roles we need to get those further from the labour market into work, without incurring NICS. The Chancellor could also give small businesses the confidence to invest by clamping down on the inappropriate use of personal guarantees when they apply for finance. Demanding you put your house on the line if you want to grow your business through even a modest loan is an obvious brake on investment that the government can release at zero cost to the public purse. Talking about giving small firms confidence, we also need to remember that whatever is unveiled at the budget will be considered in light of the proposed Employment Rights Bill, which has now embarked on its parliamentary journey. There is, of course, a long way to go, and much debate to be had before anything reaches the statute books, but there's already a great deal of concern among smaller employers about the cumulative impact these employment law reforms could have on them. The government's own analysis shows these concerns are well-founded. Its impact assessment warns small and micro businesses will be disproportionately hit by compliance and admin costs, estimated at up to £5 billion a year. Another thing to look out for on Wednesday is whether business rates relief is further extended for retail, hospitality and leisure operators in England. The cost and cash issues facing hospitality businesses in Scotland are the same as those throughout the UK, a fact starkly highlighted by Begbie's Trainer's recent Red Flag Alert report, which shows 1 in 10 bars, restaurants and food and drink firms on the brink and showing significant signs of financial distress. So, while Rachel Reeves's decisions on business rates will not apply in Scotland, whatever she unveils will give us some context for the Scottish Finance Secretary's own budget decisions in about 5 weeks' time, and any continuation of the rates relief scheme in England will only strengthen the case for some form of sector-specific support north of the border. That, however, is a question for December. Let's see what Wednesday brings first. That article was written by Colin Borland, who is a Director of Devolved Nations for the Federation of Small Businesses. The article was read by Elizabeth.
From Herald Scotland, Monday 28th of October 2024. From the STEM section of the business section. Edinburgh Space Facility reopens after 9-month closure. Article by Christy Dorsey. A Scottish testing facility is reopening following a £400,000 upgrade to better serve the country's growing space industry. Located within the Higgs Centre for Innovation in Edinburgh, the 9-month overhaul has included the installation of new and upgraded equipment, providing a wider range of environmental testing of satellites and other spacecraft in advance of launch. The offering now includes vibration, thermal, vacuum, optical, space wire, electromagnetic compatibility and radio frequency testing. The upgrade will allow the facility to better support early-stage space businesses that make up the majority of the sector in Scotland, which is home to more than 180 companies operating in the industry. After 9 months of hard work, we are thrilled to throw open our doors once again and invite companies to access our bigger and better range of dedicated space testing facilities at the Higgs Centre, Head of Innovation Julian Dines said. The upgrade means an even broader range of space testing can now take place on site here in Edinburgh, increasing the reliability of satellites in orbit. We look forward to supporting the further expansion of the burgeoning space sector in Scotland, particularly as we approach the next phase in the sector's development with space launch from Scotland. Saxavord Spaceport in Shetland is expected to become home to the first rocket launch from UK soil. This was originally due to take place by the end of this year, but was delayed by an engine explosion in which no one was hurt during pre-launch testing in August. Sutherland Spaceport, operated by Scottish rocket manufacturer Orbex, is also working towards its first launch from the Avoyne Peninsula. The investment in the testing centre has come from the Science and Technology Facilities Council, STFC, an agency in charge of UK government research in this area. The Higgs Centre is part of the STFC and is co-located within the UK Astronomy Technology Centre, UKATC, and the University of Edinburgh's Institute for Astronomy, IFA, at the Royal Observatory, Edinburgh. The site also hosts Scotland's European Space Agency, ESA, Business Incubation Centre UK. The relaunch of the Higgs Centre for Innovation Space Testing Facility will benefit Scotland and the UK as a whole, catalysing investment and strengthening our end-to-end space sector capabilities, said Annalise Luke, Deputy Chief Executive at the UK Space Agency. By providing affordable world-class testing equipment and specialist guidance, the Higgs Centre is empowering early-stage tech startups and space SMEs to innovate, reduce risks, and bring their products to market faster. This will ensure that Scotland and the UK remain at the forefront of space exploration and technology, creating jobs and driving economic growth. And that article was written by Christy Dorsey. From Herald Scotland, Monday 28th of October 2024. From the STEM section of the business section. Technology. CuckTech 20 Power Bank. Article by Sean Dimmock. What is it? A well-designed, high-capacity power bank. Good points? The pillar-shaped design stands out, complemented by a sleek, classic grey matte finish that adds a stylish aesthetic and a premium feel. In terms of size, the power bank measures 55.1 by 55.1 by 159.9 millimetres or 2.17 by 2.17 by 6.29 inches, making it compact enough to carry around in a small backpack. A smart 1.54-inch colour TFT display provides real-time information on the battery's health, power, voltage and current. This feature is highly practical for users who like to monitor their devices closely and adds a tech-savvy edge to the overall design. The CuckTech 20 utilises a massive 25,000 mAh battery, which is capable of comfortably charging a smartphone 4 times on a single cycle. The integrated PD 3.1 charging protocol ensures it is future-proof and compatible with the latest USB-C charging standards. Additionally, the single-port 140-watt fast charging and multi-port 210-watt capacity make it flexible, allowing users to charge multiple devices simultaneously via its 2 USB-C ports and a single USB-A port. Safety is a priority with the CuckTech 20, as it comes equipped with a set of comprehensive safety protections, including over-temperature, short-circuit, over-current and over-voltage protections. These features give peace of mind, especially when dealing with high-capacity devices. Bad points? Weighing a little over 0.7 kilograms or 1.54 pounds means it's not practical for transport in anything other than a bag. Best for those who travel with multiple power-hungry devices that need a substantial battery backup. Avoid if you prefer to charge your smartphone discreetly in a pocket, as this gadget's profile is not subtle. Score 9 out of 10. Cucktech 20 power bank, £94.80 from amazon.co.uk. And that article was written by Sean Dimmock.
This is from the Herald Scotland of Wednesday the 30th of October 2024 from the Voices section. Clyde cod box closure was a measure fishermen initiated themselves. This article is by Elaine White. The Clyde is unique, or a microcosm of Scottish inshore fishing, are statements often used, except in reality it's not or it shouldn't be. The level of attention the Clyde attracts in terms of fishing, given the size of the marine area, is truly astounding. It can also be wearying to those fishing who genuinely want sustainable fisheries management policy, but feel they have become political footballs or are being dragged into media flare-ups contrived for sensationalism rather than solutions. This approach of grappling for coverage seems to work for some groups, particularly those who value a high profile and want to attract political pressure and perhaps funding. For others, who perhaps don't work in the campaigning field, like fishermen generally, it can be frequently unproductive and funnel very limited time away from the work needed for improving fisheries management or working sustainably at sea. The Clyde has certainly become a marine region of intense interest. The strain this has placed on small-scale, embattled fishing communities cannot be underplayed. It feels significantly out of balance and proportion. In recent years, many involved in local fishing feel level-headed decisions have given way to management by pressure, not by dialogue, partnership, or even science. Campaigns have become almost gladiatorial in nature. Numerous interest groups gather as jousting for the dominant narratives begins over and over with predictable frequency. Small-scale fishing communities have seen their boat numbers rapidly decline in a handful of years. This is not due to collapsed stocks, but to many factors including infrastructure and investment, spatial squeeze, increasing restrictions on fishing, increasing operating costs, coastal demographics, and crewing issues. However, without a doubt, the pressure and mental health stress bearing down hard on some fishing families has resulted in them leaving their livelihoods. To be very clear, the fishing communities of the Clyde are not large-scale international industrial factory ships fishing 24/7. They are family concerns who often go out and return daily. Most aim to fish 4 or 5 days a week maximum if weather permits, which it often doesn't. The CFA represents both static and mobile gear fishermen. They are smaller-scale inshore boats and generally work well together, despite claims over the years of continual gear conflict and drama. It's something we rarely experience. Regular neutral science and socio-economics should play a key role in helping to form management, but often fishermen feel let down in these areas. In the last year, the Scottish Government had a marine compliance budget overspend of under £29 million, whilst its science budget remained underspent at £14.3 million. Whilst nobody would object to adequate compliance, science budgets sitting at around half of the expenditure of compliance budgets annually should be noteworthy. In these times of budget constraints, it isn't always about large spends, but trust and collaboration. Most inshore fishing boats would be more than willing to work with the Scottish Government and scientists as a hybrid fishing and scientific reference fleet. Such an approach would permit regular capturing of data. Fishing boats with neutral observers could be an excellent, cost-effective resource, and countries such as Norway already implement such schemes. If environmental interest groups are being supported by governmental funding schemes from bodies like Nature Scot to conduct citizen science, it only seems fair that fishermen have a similar ability to contribute. In terms of stocks in the Clyde, langoustine is a key catch for local boats, and they are currently in healthy abundance according to national and international advice. Some might say MPAs implemented around 8 years ago are helping boost fish stocks. But the Scottish Government's Clyde Ecosystem Report, first published in 2012, before the establishment of the MPAs. This report detailed the biomass of demersal fish in the Clyde in the decades 1990 to 1999 and 2000 to 2009 was over 8,000, representing approximately 4 times the biomass of fish in the decade 1940 to 1949, around 2,000 tons. It was acknowledged that some species of fish are smaller individually despite the overall increased biomass. It would be excellent to have biomass of demersal fish in the years from 2009 to 2024, especially given the reduction in fishing effort in the Clyde since 2009. Local fishermen go to great lengths to use and develop selective gear so as not to catch fish which they don't have quota or processing facilities for. Often the strapline is, fish landings are low, so stocks are depleted. But with selective gear designed not to catch fish, landings aren't a reflection of the actual stocks in the sea, but perhaps a reflection of advances in gear technology. In all of the controversy surrounding the Clyde cod box, it would be easy to miss the original closure was a measure of local fishermen initiated themselves. Local fishermen helped to inform the first MPA designations by providing their fishing data and knowledge, although they opposed the politically ambitious decision to go over and above the proposed closures in the Clyde following a wide-scale campaign. A little acknowledged fact is local fishermen were also an establishing partner of the no-take zone at Lamlash, along with the Scottish Government and Arran Coast COAST. Now the initiative is most often linked only to coast. The Clyde is the only area in the country to have a weekend ban on mobile fishing, which local fishermen themselves proposed. Fishermen of the Clyde also developed a pilot project on creel limits. It's one of only 2 areas in the country which have voluntary limits on creels. Unfortunately, in some instances, the very projects local fishing communities helped create have developed into externally well-funded, high-profile initiatives, which many fishermen feel has ultimately led to them being actively excluded or even worked against. The saddest lesson this risks teaching other fishing communities is not to work with some partners. It never had to be this way, and it shouldn't be. In the view of most local Clyde fishing communities, that which is often loudly hailed as good practice by some would not be a model they would ever recommend. We hope for a better way going forward. That article was by Elaine White, the Executive Secretary of the Clyde Fishermen's Association.
That concludes this week's edition of the Herald Scotland Podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels at Tune Review and to tell your friends about our service.